Hello students, today we're going to look at section 9.2, which is solving quadratic equations by graphing. And so there's a couple of things that we need to know beforehand. First of all, the thing that you need to know and you need to remember for the rest of your life is that the solution to a quadratic function are the points where the parabola crosses the x-axis. That should be solutions. The solutions to a quadratic function are the points where the parabola crosses the x-axis. Now there are lots of names for those points. One of those is called the x-intercept. Another one is called the zero of the function, because the zero of the function is when the function equals 0, and then we solve it and we find that x equals this and that, which is what we did when we factored them, and so those are zeros. That's another name for them. Okay, so we have x-intercepts, we have zeros, we have solution, and those are just 3 of the names for the solution. We're going to throw in a few more as we go along, but just know there are lots of ways to identify the solution to a quadratic equation. So let's see what that kind of looks like. So there are 3 options for the numbers of solutions for a quadratic equation. So the first option is if we have a parabola and it crosses the x-axis in 2 different spots. So that would have 2 solutions. Well, another option could be that we have a parabola, but the vertex is on the x-axis, so it only has 1 solution. And then the last option would be when a parabola or a quadratic equation has no solutions because it never crosses the x-axis. And yes, that's possible, that's the vertex and it goes up, but it never crosses the x-axis. So again, there's 3 possibilities. It can have 2 solutions, 1 solution, or no solution. Again, these are called x-intercepts or zeros of the function, but they are also called solutions. So we're going to graph this quadratic function or quadratic equation, x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0, and we're going to see if we can figure out what the solutions are. So the first thing we need to do is find the axis of symmetry, and so x equals the negative of b over 2a, which equals positive 2 over 2 times 1, which equals 1. Okay, so we know that that's where our axis of symmetry is, and so I'm going to go ahead and draw that. You can just draw a simple coordinate plane. You don't have to put all the coordinates in there and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to do this as a sketch. So I'm going to know that this is my axis of symmetry. Okay, so I plug that 1 in, and I get 1 squared minus 2 is negative 1 minus 8 is negative 9, so that I know that y equals negative 9, so my vertex is 1 comma negative 9. So I'm going to plot that 1 comma 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there's my vertex. We know because A is positive that it opens upward, so now let's look at our y-intercept is negative 8, so I'm going to do my y-intercept at negative 8, and I know I have a point right there. Now I can draw this parabola like it is, but that's really going to be difficult because I don't know how wide I'm going or anything like that. So we've gotten to this point, and it's going to be really difficult for us to do anything else here without creating a table of values and all that kind of stuff and drawing it, and that's just way too many steps when we have a calculator at our disposal. So let's do the rest of this on a calculator, and let's figure how that's going to work. So what I need to do on my calculator is go to the y equals button, and I'm going to type in the equation in the y equals button. And so that's x squared minus 2x minus 8. And I am going to graph it. And when I graph it, this is what I get. So I could kind of freehand that on the paper, but that's kind of not necessary. And so I look at my graph and I kind of look and see what are the values that might be where the parabola crosses the x-axis. And it looks like it could possibly be -2 and +4. So we're just going to verify that. I'm going to write that down as a guess, and then we're going to go through and we're going to verify that. So we think it is x equals -2 and x equals 4. So let's just see. Let's plug in -2 to our equation here, and I'm going to do that on the calculator. So I'm going to go to second, quit, to get out of that window, to go back here. And so I'm going to type in parentheses -2 parentheses squared -2 parentheses -2 and then -8, and I got 0. And so the y value has to equal 0 for it to be an x-intercept, so that one works. So let's do the same thing for 4. So I'm going to go parentheses 4 close parentheses x squared, and I've just hit too many buttons. So 4 squared -2 times 4 -8, and I got 0 again. That's another y-intercept, so I was correct in finding that. So we've got x equals -2 and x equals 4 as our solutions to this quadratic equation or quadratic function. So again, these would be called the solutions. They would also be called the x-intercepts, and they could also be called another one that is called the root. The root of the function or the equation is also the solution. So we have it at -2 and 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be our solutions to this quadratic equation. The last thing we're going to look at in this lesson is writing the equation of a parabola that's given to you using the information that you can identify from the parabola. Okay, so here's the parabola that I'm given, and I can see some markings on it. I see the y-intercept is here at -3. I see that the roots are -4 and +3, and I've got to come up with an equation of the parabola of that. So it's kind of crazy. Now let's think back to factoring. If we know that x equals 3, then one of my binomial factors has got to be x minus 3. So I know that that's going to be a part of it. Okay? That's going to be a part of my equation. And so I know that the other root is -4. So in order for -4 to equal 0, then I've got to come up with the little statement of x plus 4. So we know those are going to be our two factors. And I'm going to say that because if I said equals 0, then x would be +3 or x would be -4. X would be +3, x would be -4. Hopefully that's clicking because we didn't do that very long ago. So now I have this, and I need to use FOIL and use the FOIL method. So I've got x times x would be x squared plus 4x minus 3x minus 12 equals 0. And so I combine like terms. So I've got x squared plus x minus 12. Now, I can't just stop there because I'm not sure that that's the guaranteed equation. I need to plug in another point on this parabola that I've for sure identified just to see if there's anything else I can do. So if I look up here, I can see that this is a point on the parabola. It's identified, it's an intersection, and that's the point 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Okay? So I know that 4, 2 is another point on my graph. If I know that 4, 2 is another point on my graph, I can plug that in here and I can find what A equals. Okay? So I'm going to go back up here to this part, and I know that I have one of the points that is 4, 2. And the 4 is the x value and 2 is the y value. So I'm going to create this equation to look a little bit different so that I know that 2 is the y value, so 2 is going to equal to A, and A is whatever that first term is, times the quantity of x minus 3 times the quantity of x plus 4. Okay? Well, I know if the y value is 2, then the x value is 4 for the point on the line. So I'm going to add in that 4 minus 3 and 4 plus 4. I just plugged in the 4 for the x because the point is 4 comma 2, 4 comma 2. So now 2 equals a times 1 times 8. So 2 equals 8a. So divide both sides by 8. So a equals 1/4. So I know that the a value is 1/4. So I'm going to take this entire trinomial and multiply it by the 1/4 of a so that I can now come up with the equation of this parabola. And I'm going to use a different color. And that's going to be 1/4 x squared plus 1/4 x minus 3 equals 0. So the equation of this parabola is 1/4 x squared plus 1/4 x minus 3 equals 0. Now I know again this was a lot of information and we're going to go over everything in more detail and do a little bit more practice with it in class. So what I need you to do is just take a picture of all of your notes and submit that through Edmodo as your practice problem. And then when we get to class, we'll get the calculators out and we'll do more information with calculators.